Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm Joji Davenport, and in this video, I'm gonna lay out the steps I followed to grow a $250,000 net worth by age 27 as a high school chemistry teacher. So to get started, I think what we should do is define net worth. Your net worth is just your assets minus your liabilities. And I'd consider assets to be your income, real estate, stocks, side hustles, or anything that generates income for you on a daily basis. Your liabilities would be anything that is taking money out of your pocket every month. Debt would be the prime example. Think credit card loans, a car payment, a mortgage, medical bills, or student loans. To calculate your net worth then is just to list all of your assets next to your liabilities and find the difference. For me, I currently have $250,000 in assets through retirement accounts, taxable accounts, and savings accounts. I have no debt whatsoever, so my net worth would just be $250,000, which are my assets, minus $0 my liabilities, which leaves me with a net worth of $250,000. And how I got to this point is actually pretty simple in practice, but would probably be considered to be quite difficult in practice for most people. So to lay out the strategy as simple as possible, here it is. 1, have no debt. 2, earn income. 3, live within your means. And 4, invest a surplus into assets. First and most importantly, you gotta get out of debt. Every dollar that you earn should be for yourself and your family. It shouldn't be for somebody else. Unfortunately, that simply isn't true for so many of us. Many of us have credit card loans, car loans, student loans. Every dollar that you owe someone is a dollar that cannot accelerate your wealth. And the terrible thing about debt is that it doesn't just stop you from building wealth. It is actually working against you. Every dollar that you owe is trying to build more dollars for you to owe. And that is the exact opposite of what we want to happen if you want to build wealth. We actually want every dollar to be out there trying to make us more dollars. So if you have debt, that should be your number one priority, even before investing. Pay it off as soon as possible. It's going to be a major weight off your shoulder. It's going to clear your mind. It's going to allow you to actually start building wealth. Now, 2 quick things. I know mathematically it may not make sense to pay off a 3% loan if you could theoretically return 8% in the stock market. But realize that if we were using mathematical logic in the first place, we wouldn't actually be in debt. Second, it is true that you can leverage debt through real estate. And I would say if you're using that kind of debt already, you probably know what you're doing. Like I mentioned before, I don't have any debt. I paid off my student loans within a few months of graduating with my undergraduate degree, and I cash flowed my master's degree. The way that I did that was by flipping textbooks on Amazon FBA while getting my degrees, which is actually something that I plan to show you how to do on this channel, so stay tuned for that. I also own my 2002 Toyota Tacoma outright. I don't have a mortgage yet because I'm still renting, and I pay off my credit card bills in full and on time every month with automatic payment. Once you're out of debt, you gotta build some sort of safety net or emergency fund. I personally recommend 3 months worth of expenses. Put it in a savings account or money market account. It doesn't really matter. It's not an investment and it's not going to grow in a high yield savings account either. I personally have a 3-month emergency fund of $10,000 in a savings account with my local credit union that I don't touch. Third, and probably most important, you need to get a budget. I guarantee you that 97% of you don't do this, and I also guarantee you that as a result, 97% of you have no idea how much money you really spend every month. A lot of people think a budget is restrictive or think of it as a punishment. I personally have experienced the exact opposite. I find it actually very freeing to know I can spend $100 a month on whatever I want under the category personal spend, and however dumb it is, it doesn't matter because it's my money. I personally use Google Sheets to track our expenses, but there are a million different budgeting apps out there for you to choose. I've heard good things about YNAB, which is you need a budget for every dollar. Just pick one and stick to it. Once you have a budget, you can start assigning dollars to go to work for you. You discover exactly what your expenses are, as well as how much money you want to allocate for the things you value in life, your hobby, your personal spend, eating out. More importantly, this is where you now allocate dollars to invest in yourself, your own business, real estate, or index funds in the stock market. I personally invest in low expense ratio index funds, as well as in my own Amazon FBA textbook reselling business. The most passive thing you could do to build your wealth now is to invest in the stock market. That's how I've done it. It's super easy and effective. I'd recommend saving and investing a minimum of 15% of your gross income. Personally, I aim well above 50%, but then again, I want to be financially independent early in life. When it comes to investing, you want to take advantage of tax incentivized retirement accounts to do this. If you have a 401k, hit your company match first, as that is basically free money. Then move to your Roth IRA, and then finally go back to your 401k until you get to 15% of your gross income. Again, I'd personally recommend you invest much more than that. Try aiming for 50%. If you're a teacher like me or a government employee, you don't have a 401k. You have a 457B and a 403B, which is basically the same thing with a different name. Now, an unfair advantage is that government employees or even teachers can actually max both of these accounts, while a person who's working for a private company can only max out the 401k. If you're a government employee or a teacher or a firefighter or a police officer, I'd recommend maxing the 457B first and then your 403B second. and I'll have a video later explaining why I'd recommend that. Now, you want to invest this money into a low expense ratio index fund or an ETF that tracks the total US stock market or the S&P 500. Historically, this has returned 8% a year, but over the past 35 years, this has actually returned an average of 12%. In my 457B, I invest in the BlackRock Equity Index Fund R, which basically tracks the S&P 500 with a 0.03% expense ratio. In my 403B, I invest in the Fidelity 500 Index Fund, which tracks the S&P 500 with a 0.015% expense ratio. Lastly, I invest in VTSAX, Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund, in my Roth IRA and my taxable accounts, which has an expense ratio of 0.04%. The key here is that you want low fee, low expense ratio index funds that track the S&P 500 or the total US stock market. If you do these things, you're going to be wealthy. You're not going to be wealthy tomorrow, but eventually you will be in the long run. While it does depend on your income, it actually mostly just depends on your savings rate. The more money you save and invest, the quicker it's going to happen. And if you want to see what your trajectory might look like, just plug your numbers into a compound interest calculator. Here are my numbers for an example. I currently have $250,000. I plan to invest an additional $50,000 a year by maxing out my Roth IRA, my 457B, my 403B, and then the leftover into a taxable account. If I did this for 10 years with a historical rate of return of 8%, I'd have $1.3 million by the time I'm 37. And that would just be my net worth. My wife, Maya, also has a high net worth and invests a large percentage of her income, so it's likely that our real net worth by that age would be well over $2 million. Far from being wealthy, but enough to be financially independent for our current lifestyle. So, if you enjoyed this video or you found it useful in any way, let me know down below in the comments, hit that like button, and consider subscribing. I'll see you next Monday.